"You can't sit here. This row is for legal representatives only," the bailiff snapped, his voice slicing through the quiet tension of the courtroom. An old man in a faded army jacket, leaning heavily on a weathered cane, nodded silently and stepped back. He didn't protest, didn't explain. His clothes were plain, his shoes worn thin, and he carried no briefcase or documents. Just the heavy silence of a life lived in the shadows of service. No one looked twice. To them, he was a stranger, an old man who didn't belong. But then the heavy wooden doors creaked open and the air in the room shifted. A man in full military dress uniform entered, the sharp glint of 4 silver stars on his shoulders turning heads instantly. Every step echoed authority. The silence thickened. This wasn't just any officer, this was a 4-star general, decorated, battle-hardened, and unmistakably here on purpose. He marched straight toward the old man, stopped in front of him, and without hesitation snapped a salute. Then he spoke, calm, clear, and full of reverence. "Sir, I believe you forgot your seat." Gasps broke out across the courtroom. The bailiff, who'd moments ago dismissed the veteran, turned ghostly pale, suddenly aware of the mistake he'd made. The general turned toward the judge, standing shoulder to shoulder with the old man, like they were equals. "Your Honor," he said firmly, "this man is Staff Sergeant Harold Brenner. He's here to testify on behalf of my father. Before you hear a single word from him, you should know who he is." And just like that, the courtroom learned what decades of silence had hidden. 30 years ago, in the chaos of Kandahar, Sergeant Brenner had pulled 3 wounded men out of a burning convoy ambushed by insurgents. One of them was the general's father. Harold took 2 bullets, lost his best friend, and spent half a year recovering in a hospital. He declined medals, never attended ceremonies. He simply returned to civilian life, took a job as a night janitor, and quietly mentored young veterans at the VA. No cameras, no speeches, just service. Now, after years of anonymity, he was here to defend an old squad mate, wrongly accused of war crimes as part of a brutal political smear. But no one in that room knew his story. They just saw a tired man with no status, until the general walked in and shattered every assumption. The judge leaned forward, visibly shaken. "Sergeant Brenner, please accept my deepest apology. You may take any seat you want, even mine if you wish." A beat of silence followed, and then people stood. Not because they were told to, but because something about that moment demanded respect. In that courtroom, where truth is meant to reign, a forgotten hero was finally seen. As Harold sat beside the general, he began to speak. His voice was quiet but firm, every word painting the scene of that fateful day. He didn't embellish, didn't dramatize. He simply told the truth. He recounted how his squad mate, now on trial, had saved civilians, disobeyed orders to protect innocents, and risked everything to uphold the very values he was now being accused of betraying. The room held its breath. When the verdict was read, not guilty, there were no cheers, just a powerful silence, the kind that follows the end of a long injustice. Then slowly, the room rose to its feet once more, not just for the man who was cleared, but for the man who had made it possible. And in that moment, everyone understood. True rank doesn't always come with medals. Sometimes it walks in quietly, unrecognized, and still carries the weight of a nation's gratitude. The judge came down from the bench and extended his hand to Harold. "On behalf of this court and this country, thank you for your service." Harold nodded humbly and replied, "Just doing my duty, sir." That single line carried more weight than 1,000 testimonies. This wasn't just a story about a court case. It was about what we choose to see, about how society salutes veterans on posters and in parades, but looks past them in hallways and waiting rooms, about how we forget that some heroes don't need uniforms to command respect. They've earned it already, in silence and sacrifice. Before we wrap up the story, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? We'd love to hear. So the next time someone enters the room without fanfare, without title, without demand, take a moment. Ask who they are. Because the seat we deny today may belong to someone who once stood between freedom and fire. If this story touched your heart, show your support by liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel.